you are welcome to this session. It is session 5 of Unit 4. The session is about writing instructional objectives under the cognitive domain. So we'll be looking at examples of instructional objectives considering the Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. Let's look at our objectives for this session. By the end of this session, you should be able to write lesson objectives using the SHS chemistry syllabus for all the cognitive levels of Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. Before you write instructional objectives, there are certain things that you should take into consideration. Instructional objectives are directed at learners, specifying what they must be able to do after instructional activities as indicators that learning has taken place. In writing lesson objectives, the phrase "by the end of the lesson" is preferred to "at the end of the lesson." In as much as you can, consider writing "by the end of the lesson" because it is something that they are achieving as they go through the lesson. It's not that the whole lesson will be presented and right at the end they would be able to achieve those objectives. There's a continuous something. Each objective stated should have only one task in it. Don't state objective that has multiple tasks. For example, saying that or stating objective like by the end of the lesson, the students will be able to explain and discuss, or the students will be able to explain and state examples. You are giving multiple tasks in just one objective. One objective should be limited to one task. Students should be able to state. Students should be able to compare and contrast as one term. Students should be able to distinguish. Okay. The individual student is preferred to the group students. You are presenting lesson that will favor every student. So you should write your objective in terms of each student rather than saying students, such that if at the end some of them did not achieve the objectives, then you feel you are successful. Write it in terms of each student so that if you are not able to, or if at the end you have some of the students who couldn't achieve the objectives, then you were not successful. Okay, now we can move on to look at some examples of instructional objectives considering the various levels of Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. Remember, we have already looked at these levels and we have considered the action verbs involved. So here we will only select an action verb and use in an example. So for example, stating an objective at the knowledge level, we have this as by the end of the lesson, the student will be able to A. Define atomic radius, state why an anion is larger than its corresponding neutral atom. Look at something here. We have not stated any multiple tasks in one objective, like saying define and state. So take note of that. Tell how many protons and electrons are there in the ion S2 minus. The action verbs used here are all at the knowledge level. The next example to consider is comprehension. By the end of the lesson, the students will be able to distinguish between an ionic and equivalent compound. Before students will be able to distinguish, then they have understood. So the action verb distinguish is at the comprehension level, and here we are moving up. So the expectation from the learner at the comprehension level is above that of the knowledge. Another example, by the end of the lesson, the student will be able to classify a group of compounds into ionic and covalent compounds. So here too the action verb is classify. The next one is application. They should be able to apply. And here we can say by the end of the lesson, the student will be able to prepare a standard solution of an acid or a base. Here is application of knowledge. They have to apply a concept they already know in the preparation of the solution. Demonstrate how the assay of a stock solution of an acid could be used to determine the concentration of the acid. Demonstrate here this application. Apply his knowledge of the mole concept to determine the mass, volume, and concentration of solutions. We are ending the session with these questions. Try and solve them. Write 2 objectives each of the following levels of the cognitive domain: knowledge, comprehension, application.